It started like any other night. The kind of ordinary evening where no one expects the ground beneath them to shift. But by the end of it, one of the most influential figures in the world, Elon Musk, would find himself standing in a place no one imagined, face to face with a broken system. Picture this. The lights of Las Vegas shimmered like a billion tiny promises, casting their glow on busy streets. Elon Musk was seated at a quiet table in a corner restaurant, surrounded by a few close friends. For once, it wasn't about billion-dollar ideas, Mars colonies, or electric cars. It was just a rare moment of relaxation, until it wasn't. Through the restaurant window, Musk's sharp eyes caught the sudden flash of red and blue lights. Across the street, chaos seemed to unfold. A young man, visibly nervous, stood still under the glare of two officers' flashlights. Their voices were muffled by the glass, but their aggressive gestures spoke volumes. Musk's mind, trained to observe and analyze, locked onto the scene. Something about the interaction gnawed at him. "Hold up," Musk muttered, leaning closer to the window. His friends followed his gaze, but didn't seem to share his intensity. To them, it was just another police stop, commonplace in cities like Vegas. But Musk's instincts screamed otherwise. The young man, Roberto, had his hands raised, his body language shouting compliance. Despite this, the officers moved in with handcuffs. Musk's hand froze over his glass. He saw the panic in Roberto's eyes, the helpless shake of his head. The scene struck a nerve deep within Musk. He couldn't place it, but something was off. This wasn't just a routine arrest. And then it happened. Roberto tried to explain, gesturing with his hands. Nothing aggressive, nothing threatening. Yet, one of the officers shoved him hard against the hood of the cruiser. The metallic clang echoed even through the restaurant's thick walls. Musk's jaw tightened. People glanced at the scene outside, then quickly looked away, resuming their meals. But Musk couldn't. He wouldn't. As Roberto was pushed into the back seat of the police car, Musk's heart pounded. The man didn't fit the profile of a hardened criminal. His body language told a different story. A man exhausted, perhaps misunderstood. Musk stared long after the cruiser drove off, leaving behind an eerie silence. The rest of the night was a blur. Conversations at the table continued, but Musk wasn't present. His mind replayed the scene over and over. What had Roberto said? Why had the officers escalated so quickly? Musk was no stranger to the concept of bias. He'd grown up in apartheid South Africa, where injustice was woven into the fabric of daily life. But witnessing it, here and now, felt like a punch to the gut. Back at his hotel, Musk couldn't sleep. The glow of his laptop screen illuminated his face as he scoured news articles, police reports, and social media posts. But there was nothing. No robbery, no suspect matching Roberto's description, nothing that justified what he'd seen. And then Musk found it. A small, barely noticed tweet from a local Vegas resident. "Saw some dude get arrested tonight for matching a description. Whole thing felt wrong. When will this stop?" Hashtag racial profiling. Musk's fist clenched. The memory of Roberto's expression, the silent plea in his eyes, haunted him. He knew he couldn't ignore this. He couldn't be the person who witnesses injustice and does nothing. The next morning, as sunlight broke through the Vegas skyline, Musk made his decision. He was going to the source. Not as the billionaire tech mogul, not as the face of Tesla or SpaceX, but as a concerned citizen determined to get answers. No press, no entourage, just Musk, a jacket, and jeans. His destination? The Las Vegas Police Department. What happened next would set the world ablaze. As Musk stepped into the station, the officers inside did a double take. Was it? No, it couldn't be. But there he was. Elon Musk, standing at the front desk, calm yet commanding. Officer Harper, who had been filling out paperwork, froze mid-sentence. Musk's piercing gaze locked onto him. "Good morning," Musk began, his voice steady. "I need to speak with someone in charge. Now." The words were polite, but the tone carried weight. Harper stammered a response, scrambling to alert his superior. Within minutes, Sergeant Richard emerged. A man seasoned by years of service, his badge gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. He extended a hand cautiously. "Mr. Musk," Richard said, his expression betraying a mix of confusion and curiosity. To what do we owe the pleasure? Musk didn't waste time with pleasantries. Last night, he began. I witnessed something troubling. A young man, Roberto, I believe, was arrested. I need to understand why. Richard's face hardened slightly. Sir, with all due respect, we can't discuss ongoing cases. I'm not here for the legalese, Musk interrupted, his tone sharpening. I'm here because what I saw wasn't justice. And if you won't explain, I'll find out myself. The tension in the room was palpable. Officers exchanged nervous glances. Who walks into a police station and confronts them like this? But Musk wasn't just anyone. And this wasn't just another day. Look, Musk continued, his voice softening but losing none of its resolve. I know mistakes happen, but if this was one, it's not just about Roberto. It's about a system that allows these mistakes to keep happening. And I think you know that. Richard hesitated. There was something disarming about Musk's presence, his mix of intellect and sincerity. Before he could respond, Musk delivered the words that would send shockwaves through the department. I'm not here to argue, he said. I'm here to fix it. And just like that, Elon Musk wasn't just a witness anymore. He was a man on a mission, one that would challenge a system, ignite a national debate, and prove that sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the most profound change. Sergeant Richard cleared his throat, shifting his weight uncomfortably. Elon Musk's words still hung in the air. I'm here to fix it. Few people spoke to law enforcement with such confidence, especially not about the system itself. For a moment, Richard stared at Musk, trying to decide if this was some kind of publicity stunt. But there was something in Musk's tone, in the way he stood, that told him this was personal. All right, Richard finally said, his voice cautious. Let's talk in my office. Musk followed Richard through the maze of desks and filing cabinets. As they entered the small, dimly lit office, Richard gestured to a chair. Musk didn't sit. He crossed his arms, waiting for Richard to speak. Look, Richard began. I can't give you the details of the arrest. It's protocol. But I can assure you, we don't arrest people without cause. Musk raised an eyebrow. Cause? He repeated. Because from where I stood, it looked like the only cause was a skin tone and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Richard sighed. I get it. You're upset. You saw a situation that looked bad. But there are procedures, Mr. Musk. We follow them. Procedures that allow innocent people to be shoved into cars and treated like criminals. Musk countered. Tell me something, Sergeant. What happens to Roberto now? He's sitting in a cell, isn't he? What evidence do you have against him? Richard hesitated. He didn't like being cornered, but Musk wasn't giving him any room to maneuver. He matched the description of a suspect, Richard finally admitted. Musk leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. A suspect for what? An attempted robbery, Richard said. There was an incident in the area earlier that evening. Roberto was seen near the scene. Musk's voice sharpened. And what's the description you're working with? Richard paused, then reluctantly admitted. Male, early 20s, wearing a dark hoodie. Musk let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. A dark hoodie, he repeated. That's the description you're basing this on? Do you have any idea how many people fit that description? That's not an investigation. It's a stereotype. Richard opened his mouth to respond. But Musk wasn't finished. Let me ask you something, Sergeant. Did anyone check for witnesses? Video footage? Or was it just easier to grab the first person who looked like he didn't belong? Richard bristled at the accusation. That's not how we work, he snapped. But the reality is, sometimes we have to act quickly. Mistakes can happen. Musk seized on the admission. Mistakes? You're talking about someone's life, Sergeant. A mistake here means a record, a stigma, opportunities lost. Roberto isn't just a name in a file. He's a human being. For a moment, the room was silent. Richard looked away, his jaw tightening. Musk could see the cracks forming in his defensive posture. Finally, Richard exhaled and looked Musk in the eye. All right, he said. If you want to help, I can't stop you. But understand this. The system doesn't change overnight. It's not as simple as you think. Musk nodded. I know it's not simple. But complexity isn't an excuse for inaction. Richard studied Musk for a long moment, then reached for his phone. Let me see if I can pull Roberto's file. As Richard worked, Musk's mind raced. He had entered this station on impulse, driven by the memory of Roberto's fear. But now, standing here, he realized this was bigger than one man. This was about a system that too often failed those it was meant to protect. And if there was one thing Musk excelled at, it was tackling big, broken systems. A knock on the door broke his thoughts. An officer stepped in, holding a tablet. "Sergeant, we've got the arrest footage from last night." Richard gestured for the officer to bring it over. Musk's eyes locked onto the screen as the video began to play. It showed the street corner he'd seen from the restaurant. Roberto was walking alone, hands in his pockets, when the patrol car pulled up beside him. The officers stepped out, questioning him. Roberto seemed calm at first, but as their tone grew harsher, his body language shifted, confusion, then fear. Musk could see the moment everything changed. One officer reached for Roberto's arm, and he instinctively pulled back. That's when they escalated. "There," Richard said, pausing the footage. "He resisted." "Resisted?" Musk echoed, incredulous. "That's not resistance, that's fear. You can see it in his face." Richard didn't respond. The video continued, showing Roberto being handcuffed and shoved into the cruiser. Musk clenched his fists. The footage confirmed what he already knew. This wasn't justice. This was profiling, plain and simple. "Where is he now?" Musk asked, his voice low but firm. "In holding," Richard admitted. "He'll be processed later today." Musk nodded. "I want to see him." Richard hesitated. "That's not—" "I'm not asking," Musk interrupted. "I'm telling you. If you won't let me see him, I'll call every lawyer I know, every journalist, and make sure the world knows what's happening here." Richard sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine, but keep it brief." Minutes later, Musk stood in front of a holding cell. Roberto sat on the bench, his head in his hands. When he looked up and saw Musk, his brow furrowed in confusion. Who are you?" he asked. "Elon Musk," Musk said simply. "I saw what happened last night. I'm here to help." Roberto blinked, as if trying to process the absurdity of the situation. "Help?" he repeated. "Why would someone like you care?" Musk crouched down so they were at eye level. "Because what happened to you was wrong," he said. "And because I've been in your shoes. Different time, different place. But I know what it's like to feel powerless." Roberto's eyes softened, but his expression remained guarded. "They think I did something I didn't do," he said quietly. "But no one's going to believe me. People like me don't get second chances." Musk's voice hardened. "Then we'll make them believe. You're not alone in this." For the first time, Roberto's shoulders relaxed slightly. Musk stood, turning to Richard. "Release him," he said. "Now." Richard looked incredulous. "I can't just—" "You can," Musk interrupted. "And you will. Or this won't end here." Richard hesitated, then sighed. "I'll see what I can do." As Musk watched Roberto being led out of the cell, he made a silent promise. This wasn't just about clearing one man's name. This was about dismantling a system that allowed such injustices to happen in the first place. And he wasn't going to stop until he succeeded. Elon Musk stood outside the police station with Roberto by his side, both of them quiet. Roberto rubbed his wrists, where the handcuffs had left faint red marks. Musk could feel the weight of Roberto's silence. It wasn't relief, it was exhaustion. For Roberto, this wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern, one he had learned to live with. But for Musk, it was fuel. He couldn't shake the image of Roberto in that cell, his hope fading with every passing minute. "You okay?" Musk finally asked. Roberto shrugged. "Better than I was an hour ago," he said. Then, after a pause, "Thank you, I guess." "You don't have to thank me," Musk replied. "You shouldn't have been in there in the first place." Roberto gave a faint nod but said nothing. Musk could tell he didn't believe this was the end. And he was right. The battle was just beginning. That night, Musk sat in his sprawling home office, staring at his computer screen. His usual projects, space travel, electric cars, AI, felt distant now, almost trivial compared to the fire burning inside him. He began typing furiously, pulling up statistics, news articles, case studies. The data was damning. Disproportionate arrests, racial profiling, systemic bias. The more he read, the angrier he became. He didn't just want to help Roberto. He wanted to build something bigger, something that could hold the system accountable. After hours of research, an idea began to take shape. What if there was a way to track and expose injustices in real time? A system that couldn't be silenced or ignored. Musk's mind raced as he sketched out the framework. An AI-driven platform that would analyze police behavior, flag patterns of misconduct, and provide legal resources for victims. He would call it Justice Link. The idea wasn't just ambitious, it was revolutionary. Musk leaned back in his chair, his exhaustion overshadowed by excitement. This wasn't just another product launch. This was a fight for justice. The next morning, Musk called a meeting with his top engineers and AI specialists. They gathered in Tesla's innovation lab, their curiosity piqued by the cryptic invitation. "This isn't about cars," Musk began, pacing in front of the group. "It's not about rockets or satellites. It's about fixing something much closer to home." He outlined the concept for Justice Link, a platform that would use advanced machine learning to analyze body cam footage, police reports, and citizen recordings. It would identify patterns of bias, track misconduct, and create an indisputable public record. The system would be decentralized, powered by blockchain technology, to ensure transparency and prevent tampering. "This is about accountability," Musk said, his voice firm. "We're building a system that doesn't just report injustice, it stops it." The room fell silent. Then, one of the engineers raised her hand. "But, you know this is going to ruffle some feathers, right? Law enforcement, government agencies, they're not going to like this." "They don't have to like it," Musk replied. "They just have to know we're watching." As the Justice Link project took shape, Musk faced resistance at every turn. Legal teams warned him of potential lawsuits. Politicians accused him of meddling in law enforcement. Even some of his closest allies questioned the wisdom of taking on such a volatile issue. But Musk was undeterred. He poured millions into the project, hiring civil rights experts, lawyers, and data scientists to ensure the platform was both effective and ethical. He reached out to grassroots organizations, seeking their input and support. And he kept Roberto close, inviting him to be part of the advisory team. "You really think this is going to change anything?" Roberto asked one day, watching a demo of the platform in action. "It has to," Musk said simply. "If it doesn't, then what's the point of all this?" Roberto nodded, a flicker of hope returning to his eyes. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. When Justice Link launched 6 months later, it made headlines worldwide. The platform's debut was streamed live, with Musk delivering a speech that was equal parts technical presentation and call to action. "This isn't just a tool," he told the audience. "It's a mirror. It shows us who we are as a society. And if we don't like what we see, it's up to us to change it." The response was immediate and polarizing. Civil rights groups praised the platform as a game changer, while police unions condemned it as an attack on law enforcement. But Musk didn't care about the controversy. He cared about the results. And the results came quickly. Within weeks, Justice Link had flagged dozens of cases of misconduct, providing evidence that led to internal investigations and, in some instances, exonerations for wrongfully accused individuals. The platform became a rallying point for activists, a tool they could use to amplify their voices and demand accountability. But with success came danger. Musk began receiving threats, anonymous emails, phone calls, even a suspicious package delivered to his office. His security team urged him to scale back, to let someone else take the lead. "Are you kidding?" Musk said, brushing them off. "This is just proof we're doing something right." One night, as Musk reviewed Justice Link's latest data reports, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Roberto. "Turn on the news." Musk grabbed the remote and flipped to a major news network. The headline blared across the screen. "Justice Link flags major police corruption scandal." The story detailed how the platform had uncovered evidence of a department-wide cover-up in a major city, exposing a culture of bribery and abuse. The revelations were explosive, sparking protests and demands for reform. Musk felt a surge of pride, but also a gnawing sense of responsibility. This was only the beginning. The system was fighting back, and the fight wouldn't be easy. As he turned off the TV, his phone buzzed again. Another text from Roberto. "Thank you for everything." Musk smiled, his resolve stronger than ever. Justice Link wasn't just a tool. It was a movement, and he wasn't going to stop until the system that had failed Roberto, and so many others, was rebuilt from the ground up. Justice Link had become a household name in less than a year. For every life it helped, for every system it exposed, and for every corrupt official it held accountable, it was celebrated as a beacon of progress. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like,